The auctioneer's voice cracked when he read her designation aloud. Not from emotion, from the absurdity of what he was selling. A Valanthi princess, third daughter of the Silver Throne, reduced to a lot number between salvaged cargo containers and decommissioned mining equipment. Marcus Chen stood at the back of the crowd, his worn merchant coat marking him as exactly what he was. A small-time trader with a single ship and enough credits to his name to maybe afford a decent meal on this station. He had no business being here. The auction house on Kala Station catered to consortium buyers, noble houses looking for leverage, and the occasional crime syndicate seeking exotic acquisitions. But he'd heard the whispers in the docking bay. A Valanthi royal. Damaged goods. The crowd parted slightly as the guards brought her forward. She walked without chains. The Valanthi were too proud for that, even in captivity. But the neural suppressor collar around her throat glowed a faint, humiliating blue. Her silver-white hair had been crudely cut, probably to fit standard transport containers. The left side of her face bore the distinctive scarring of a plasma burn, twisting from her temple down to her jaw. One eye remained closed, perhaps permanently. The noble houses in attendance shifted uncomfortably. The syndicate representative checked his datapad and shook his head. Even the consortium buyer, who'd come specifically for Valanthi merchandise, frowned and began walking toward the exit. Starting bid, the auctioneer announced, his enthusiasm forced. 50,000 credits. Silence. 40,000? The Valanthi woman. No, princess, Marcus reminded himself. Stood perfectly still. Her remaining eye, a deep violet that seemed to hold entire galaxies, stared at nothing. Through nothing. She had already left this place in her mind, retreated to wherever the broken go to survive. 20,000. Come now, distinguished buyers. Valanthi biology alone is worth. She's worthless. The consortium buyer had paused at the door. House Talvin will not accept damaged merchandise. Her scarring indicates neural pathway disruption. She cannot bear heirs, cannot serve in any official capacity, cannot even be presented at court. Owners. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. 15,000. The auctioneer said weakly. The princess's eye moved. Just slightly. Toward the exit. Not with hope. Hope had clearly been burned out of her long ago. But with something worse. Recognition. She knew exactly what happened to Valanthi who didn't sell. The medical research facilities paid by the pound. Marcus stepped forward before his brain caught up with his feet. 100,000 credits. The auction house went silent. Then, slowly, laughter began to ripple through the crowd. The small human trader, the one with the patched coat and the ship that probably leaked atmosphere, bidding more than 3 times what the Valanthi was worth. The auctioneer's eyes darted to his security team, clearly wondering if this was some kind of disruption that needed to be handled. Sir, do you have proof of funds? Marcus pulled out his chip. Everything. His entire life savings, the emergency fund, the fuel reserves for the next 3 runs. 20 years of scraping by in the margins of civilized space. Verified, the auctioneer said, surprise evident in his voice. 100,000 credits from the human trader. Do I hear? Why? It was the first word she'd spoken. Her voice was hoarse, damaged perhaps by whatever had scarred her face, but underneath the roughness was something that had once been trained in royal courts. Marcus looked at her directly. Not at her scars, not at the collar, but at her. Because no one else was going to. That's not an answer. The crowd was watching now, sensing something more interesting than a simple transaction. Marcus could feel their eyes, their judgment, their amusement at the foolish human throwing away his future on broken goods. I was auctioned once, Marcus said quietly. Different circumstances. Labor camp on Nexus, Zevon Tatai. I was 12. I remember what it felt like when no one bid. When they started talking about alternative uses. He paused. Someone bought me that day. Paid triple. Never asked for anything in return. Just gave me a job on his ship and treated me like a person. And you think this makes us even? That I'll be grateful? I don't think anything, Your Highness. And I'm not asking for anything. He turned to the auctioneer. Process the sale. I want that collar off her before we leave this room. The auctioneer stammered. Sir, the collar is a security measure. Standard practice for, she's my property now, legally speaking. I want the collar removed. Now. The word property hung in the air. The princess's eye found his again, searching for the trap, the angle, the inevitable catch. Marcus understood. He'd done the same thing 23 years ago, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The collar came off with a soft click. The princess's hand went to her throat, touching the bare skin where the suppressor had sat. Her fingers trembled slightly, the first sign of emotion she'd shown. What do you want from me? She asked again, and this time her voice cracked. Marcus shrugged. I've got a cargo ship. Not much to look at, but she runs. I could use a navigator if you're willing. If not, I can drop you at any station between here and the rim. Your choice. My choice, she repeated, as if the words were in a foreign language. Your choice. The noble houses were murmuring now. The consortium buyer had stopped at the door, watching with naked curiosity. This was not how transactions worked. This was not how humans worked, those small, fragile, insignificant creatures who had only recently stumbled into galactic civilization. The princess drew herself up. Despite the rough-cut hair, despite the scars, despite the tremor in her hands, she was suddenly every inch a royal. I am Marcus and Sarethi, third daughter of the Silver Throne, navigator of the celestial paths, and I do not accept charity. Marcus nodded slowly. Then don't. Take the job. Work for your keep. Pay me back over time if you want. I don't care. You paid double my worth. I paid what the auctioneer asked, after no one else would bid at all. Then I guess I got a bargain. Something shifted in her expression. Not gratitude. Valanthy nobility didn't show gratitude. He'd learned that much in his years trading near their space. But something else. Confusion, maybe. Or the first fragile thread of something that might eventually become trust. Why? She asked for the third time. Marcus met her gaze steadily. She was auctioned as damaged goods. I paid double and asked for nothing. He smiled faintly. Because that's what should have been done. The princess, Sarethi, stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, she extended her hand. Not in the Valanthy greeting between equals, but in the human fashion. A handshake. I will be your navigator, human. For now. For now works. Her hand was cool in his, her grip stronger than he'd expected. Around them, the auction house began to empty, the crowd dispersing with disappointed murmurs about anticlimactic endings. None of them understood. But then, they didn't need to. The Wandering Star was not an impressive vessel. Sarethi had grown up on ships that could have carried Marcus's entire cargo hold as a lifeboat. But as she stepped through the airlock for the first time, she noticed something unexpected. It was clean. Not just functional. Actually clean. The corridors were narrow but well lit. The air filtration hummed with proper maintenance. And when Marcus led her to the small cabin that would be hers, she found fresh linens, a working terminal, and a lock on the door. It's not much, Marcus said, rubbing the back of his neck. But it's private. That lock only opens from the inside except for emergency decompression protocols. Sarethi stood in the doorway, studying the small space. 8 by 10 feet perhaps. A bed, a desk, a storage locker, a mirror. The mirror caught her attention, or rather, her avoidance of it. I don't need much. Galleys down the corridor left side. Help yourself to anything. Navigation console is on the bridge. I'll show you the systems when you're ready, but no rush. He paused. I know this is... and... I know you need time. You know nothing about what I need. The words came out sharper than she'd intended. Or, perhaps exactly as sharp as she'd intended. 20 days in a cargo container, 3 auctions across as many stations, and before that, she closed her eyes. You're right, Marcus said quietly. I don't. I'm going to be in the engine room if you need anything. We're scheduled to depart in 6 hours. He left without waiting for a response. Sarethi listened to his footsteps fade, then slowly entered the cabin. The door slid shut behind her. She engaged the lock, heard the solid click, and something in her chest loosened by a fraction. She didn't look in the mirror. For the first 3 days, she barely left the cabin. Marcus didn't push. He left meals outside her door at regular intervals, simple food, but properly prepared. Each time she heard him walk away before she opened the door. On the 4th day, hunger won over pride. She found him in the galley, reviewing cargo manifests on a battered datapad. He looked up when she entered, nodded once, and returned to his work. No commentary. No expectation. Sarethi moved to the food storage, selected a protein bar and some fruit she didn't recognize, and sat at the far end of the small table. They ate in silence for several minutes. Your ship is older than it appears, she finally said. The engine signature suggests a Terran-manufactured core, but the hull modifications are Kethrani. 3rd-generation refugees, I'd estimate. Marcus looked up, surprised. You can tell that from the engine sound? I can tell that from the resonance pattern in the deck plating. She took another bite. Valanthy navigators are trained to read ships. Every vessel has a voice. What does this one say? Sarethi considered that you've replaced the port stabilizer recently. That your fuel intake is running at 94% efficiency, which is impressive for a vessel this age. And that you care for her. She paused. Ships know when they're cared for. Marcus smiled. The first genuine smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, erasing the careful neutrality he usually maintained. Her name's the Wandering Star. Named her myself, 15 years ago, when the captain I told you about left her to me. The one who bought you as a child, Jacob Okonkwo. Best man I ever knew. The smile faded slightly, touched with old grief. He passed 8 years back. Left me the ship and enough debt to keep me running cargo routes for a decade. Sarethi absorbed this. You paid his debts, of course. Why? He was dead. The debt collectors couldn't compel a ship change of ownership in most jurisdictions. Marcus shrugged. Because he would have paid them if he'd lived. Because his word meant something, and taking his ship meant taking his word. He set down the datapad. Some things matter more than credits. Sarethi didn't respond. In Valanthe society, debt was a sacred obligation, but also a weapon. Her father had used debt to control lesser houses for centuries. The idea of honoring a dead man's word simply because it was right. I would like to see the navigation console, she said abruptly. Marcus nodded, asking no questions about the change in subject. Follow me. The bridge was small but functional. Sarethi's trained eye picked out the modifications immediately. The navigation console had been upgraded, probably at significant expense, with a crystal core processor that could handle Valanthe's celestial mathematics. She stopped short. This is a Sereneth-class nav system. Yeah, picked it up 3 years ago from a salvage yard near Valanthe Space. Figured if I ever got a contract requiring precision jumps, I'd need something better than standard human equipment. This system is worth more than your ship. Probably. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. Took me 2 years to pay it off, but like I said, some things matter more than credits. Sarethi approached the console slowly. Her fingers hovered over the interface, not quite touching. A Sereneth-class system was designed for Valanthe navigators. The neural interface would recognize her training, respond to her instincts, amplify her natural abilities. May I? It's your console now. She placed her palm on the interface. The system hummed to life, and for the first time since her capture, Sarethi felt something other than emptiness. The stars spread before her in her mind, paths and currents, and the ancient mathematics of celestial navigation flowing through the crystal core. She gasped softly. You okay? She removed her hand, steadying herself. I had thought I would never navigate again. My injuries. She touched the scarred side of her face unconsciously. The neural damage was considered too severe. Seemed fine to me. You don't understand. In my house, any flaw is disqualification. I was removed from the Navigators Guild before my wounds had even healed. They said I was... She paused. They said I was damaged goods. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, Sarethi, can I ask you something personal? She tensed but nodded. Those scars, how'd you get them? I saved my sister's life. The words hung in the air. Marcus waited. There was an assassination attempt. A plasma grenade. I saw it before anyone else and pushed her clear. Sarethi's voice was flat, clinical. I was too slow to save my own face. My mother was displeased. Displeased that you saved your sister. Displeased that I damaged myself in the process. A princess with scars cannot be married for alliance. Cannot appear at court functions. Cannot serve the house. Her voice hardened. I became a liability. A burden. So they found a solution. Marcus's expression didn't change, but his hands tightened on the doorframe. They sold you. They arranged for my disappearance during a border skirmish. The pirates who captured me were paid in advance. I was meant to vanish, sold far enough from Valanthe Space that no one would ever know. She laughed bitterly. They didn't count on me surviving long enough to reach auction. Your own family. My own house, Sarethi corrected. Family is a human concept. Houses are about power, legacy, bloodlines. I failed all three. No, dial. Marcus pushed off from the doorframe, his voice suddenly hard. No, you didn't fail anything. You saved your sister's life. That's not failure. That's... He stopped, visibly collecting himself. That's the opposite of failure. Sarethi stared at him. In all her weeks of captivity, through all the auctions and inspections and humiliations, no one had looked at her like that. With anger, but not at her. For her. You're a strange human, she said finally. So, I've been told. The silence stretched between them, but it was different now. Less guarded. I will navigate for you, Sarethi said quietly. Not because I owe you, but because you see worth where others saw damage. That is... Rare. Fair enough. Marcus moved toward the door. Get some rest. We've got a cargo run to Tesseri Station in the morning. 3 days at standard speed. Unless you want to show me what a Valanthi navigator can really do with a Sarenith-class system. For the first time since her world had burned, Sarethi smiled. It was small, and it pulled at her scarred tissue painfully, but it was real. 16 hours, she said. I can have us there in 16 hours. Marcus grinned. Then let's see it. The first month passed in a rhythm Sarethi hadn't expected. Comfortable. Marcus gave her space without distance, conversation without pressure. They developed a routine. She navigated, he handled the cargo and negotiations, and in the quiet hours between jumps they talked. He told her about Earth, about the colony ships that had first carried humanity to the stars, about the wars and alliances and stumbling steps that had brought humans to the galactic stage. She told him about Valanthi celestial mathematics, about the paths between stars that only certain minds could perceive, about a civilization so old it had forgotten more history than humanity had yet written. She didn't tell him about the nightmares. Every few nights, she woke gasping, phantom fire crawling across her face. Sometimes she heard her mother's voice, cold and distant. Damaged goods cannot represent this house. Sometimes she heard her sister, the one she'd saved, asking why Sarethi couldn't have moved faster, been smarter, avoided the scars that bore. Made everything so complicated. She didn't tell Marcus, but she suspected he knew anyway. More than once, he found warm tea outside her door in the small hours, the temperature suggesting it had been left just minutes before. The second month brought their first real crisis. Jump destabilization. Sarethi's voice cut through the bridge as alarms screamed. We're being pulled off course. Marcus was at her side in seconds. Natural phenomenon? No. Artificial gravity well. Someone's dragging us out of jump space. The wandering star shuddered as reality reasserted itself around them. Through the view screen, they saw the source, a massive vessel, bristling with weapons, the sigil of House Calith blazing on its hull. Valanthi Hunter class, Sarethi said, her blood running cold. That's my mother's ally. Hailing frequencies, Marcus said, already moving to the comm station. Let's see what they want. I know what they want. Sarethi's voice was hollow. They want to finish what they started. The view screen flickered to life. A Valanthi commander appeared, his silver-white hair pulled back in traditional military style, his face arranged in an expression of cold courtesy. Human vessel. You are carrying property of House Valanthi. Surrender the princess immediately, and you will be permitted to continue on your way. Marcus glanced at Sarethi. She stood rigid, her hands clenched at her sides, but she gave no indication of what she wanted him to do. He turned back to the view screen. I'm not carrying any property. I have a crew member. She's a free being who works for me by her own choice. The commander's expression flickered with disdain. Human, you misunderstand your situation. The Sarethicane was meant to disappear. Her continued existence is an embarrassment to the house. We are here to correct that error. Then you're here for a fight. The words hung in the air. Sarethi stared at Marcus, watching him sign his own death warrant with 4 simple words. The wandering star had no weapons worth mentioning. The Hunter-class vessel could atomize them with a single volley. Marcus, she said quietly. Don't. He didn't look at her. Commander, I don't know how things work in Valanthi space, but where I come from we don't hand over crew members to be murdered. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn that ship around, go back to House Calith, and tell them that Sarethicane is under the protection of the Earth Trade Collective. That means any action against her is an action against humanity. The commander laughed. The Earth Trade Collective? That ragged band of merchants? You have no military power? No political standing? No, we have witnesses. Marcus tapped a control on his console. Throughout the bridge, small lights flickered on. Recording devices, transmitting to 17 different relay stations across the sector. I've been broadcasting this conversation to every human vessel, station, and settlement within range since your first hail. Right now, about 40,000 humans know that House Calith is threatening to murder a rescued slave. And the thing about humans, Commander, we talk. We remember. And we hold grudges. The commander's expression shifted. You're bluffing. Am I? Your house trades with human merchants. Buys our exotic goods. Uses our trade routes. Hires our cargo vessels for deniable operations. How many credits does that represent annually? How much would it cost if every human trader refused to deal with House Calith? You couldn't organize. We organized a resistance against the consortium's labor camps. We organized an evacuation of 3 million people from Nexus 7 when the government tried to exterminate us. We organized a trading network across 17 systems in less than a decade. Marcus leaned forward. We're very good at organizing, Commander. And we're very good at remembering who our friends are. The silence stretched. Furthermore, Marcus continued, I want to point out that whatever arrangement House Valanthi made for Sarethi's disappearance, that's technically a crime in council space. Selling a free citizen into slavery, conspiracy to commit murder. I wonder how the Silver Throne would react if evidence of such arrangements became public. The commander's face went pale. You have no evidence of... I have Sarethi's testimony. I have records from 3 auction houses. And I have a very good lawyer on Tesseri Station who's been waiting for my call. Marcus smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. Your move, Commander. The view screen flickered. Sarethi could hear voices in the background, the commander arguing with someone off-screen. Her hand found Marcus's arm, gripping tight. You shouldn't have done this, she whispered. They'll hunt you now. They'll never let this stand. Then they'll hunt us both. He covered her hand with his own. I told you. Some things matter more than credits. The view screen stabilized. The commander's expression had changed, still cold, but now with a thread of calculation. The House Caliph withdraws its claim. This matter is concluded. The transmission cut. A moment later, the Hunter-class vessel began to turn, its massive engines powering up for a jump away. Sarethi stared at the empty view screen, trembling. They'll be back, she said. Maybe not House Caliph, but someone. My mother doesn't forget, doesn't forgive. Then we'll deal with it when it comes. Why? She turned to face him, her voice breaking. Why do you keep doing this? You could have handed me over. You could have walked away at the auction. You could have saved yourself 100 times over. Why? Marcus met her eyes. His hand was still over hers, warm and steady. Because you saved your sister. Because you bear those scars for an act of love. Because everyone else looked at you and saw damage, but I looked at you and saw someone worth saving. He paused. Because sometimes the galaxy needs people who'll do the right thing even when it's stupid. Sarethi felt something crack inside her, a wall she'd been building since the day her mother looked at her scarred face with disgust. Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot and unexpected. I don't understand you, she whispered. You don't have to understand me. Marcus's thumb traced across her knuckles gently. You just have to know that I'm not going anywhere. She stepped forward then, crossing some invisible boundary they'd both been maintaining. Her arms wrapped around him, her face pressed against his shoulder, and she wept. For the first time since her capture, truly wept, while he held her steady. I've got you, he murmured. I've got you. And somehow, against all evidence and all experience, she believed him. The Council of Independent Merchants convened twice per standard year, and this session had drawn representatives from across human-controlled space. Marcus had submitted his testimony regarding House Caliph's actions 3 months prior. He hadn't expected much. Humans were still too new, too insignificant in galactic politics to challenge a Valanthi noble house directly. He certainly hadn't expected the Valanthi delegation to request a formal audience. This is a trap, Sarethi said, pacing their small quarters on Tesseri Station. It has to be. My mother wouldn't negotiate. She'd rather burn her entire trade relationship with humanity than admit wrongdoing. Maybe it's not from your mother. Then who? Sarethi stopped mid-stride. The door chimed. Marcus opened it to find a Valanthi woman standing in the corridor, young, silver-haired, with features that made Sarethi gasp. Kethani, Sarethi breathed. The younger woman, Sarethi's sister, the one she'd saved, stepped into the room. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her composed royal bearing cracked with obvious emotion. I found you, Kethani said. I've been searching for 6 months, ever since I discovered what Mother did. You shouldn't be here. Sarethi's voice was harsh. If Mother knows you found me, Mother is dead. The words hung in the air. Sarethi swayed, and Marcus was there, a steadying hand on her back. She was assassinated 3 weeks ago, Kethani continued. A poison in her evening wine. The household suspect's House Caliph. Apparently their relationship soured after your human protector publicly humiliated their commander. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. The transmission he broadcast has been seen by most of Valanthi space by now. The story of the damaged princess, sold by her own house, defended by a human with nothing but words. I don't understand, Sarethi said. Sister Dai. Kethani stepped forward, taking Sarethi's hands in her own. The Silver Throne passes to the eldest surviving daughter of the bloodline. With Mother gone, that's me. But I have never wanted to rule. I never wanted any of this. She squeezed Sarethi's hands. You saved my life. You gave up everything for me. And then you were punished for it while I did nothing. You didn't know. I should have. I should have seen what Mother was becoming, what she was capable of. I should have protected you. Cathani's voice cracked. I'm here to make things right. She released Sarethi's hands and turned to Marcus, studying him with those unnerving Valanthe eyes. You are the human who paid double for my sister, and asked for nothing. I'm Marcus Chen, Your Highness. And I didn't do it for payment or thanks. I know. That's why it matters. Cathani drew a small data crystal from her robes. This contains a formal proclamation from the Silver Throne. Sarethi is hereby restored to her full titles and privileges. Her navigation credentials are reinstated. Her status as third daughter of the throne is confirmed, with all rights and protections thereof. Sarethi took the crystal with trembling hands. Cathani, there's more. The younger sister took a breath. I'm also here to invite you home, to take your rightful place in the house, to help me rule, since we both know I haven't the strength for it alone. Marcus felt his heart constrict. This was what Sarethi deserved. Her position restored, her honor reclaimed. A return to everything that had been stolen from her. And the end of whatever they had built together. Sarethi looked at the crystal, then at her sister, then, unexpectedly, at Marcus. Her gaze held there. May I have a moment alone with Marcus? Cathani nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. She stepped outside, the door sliding shut behind her. The silence stretched between them. You should go, Marcus said finally, forcing the words out. This is what you've been waiting for. Your titles, your position, your home. You don't belong on a cargo ship with a human trader. Don't tell me where I belong. He blinked at the sharpness in her voice. Sarethi crossed the room to stand before him. She was shorter than him by several inches, something he'd never noticed before, always so caught up in her presence that physical details seemed irrelevant. When I was taken from my house, she said softly, I thought I had lost everything. My status, my purpose, my future. I was damaged goods, fit only for salvage. She reached up, touching the scarred side of her face. Then you came. And you saw something else. Sarethi, you didn't see a princess. You didn't see a bargain, or an opportunity. You saw a person. Her hand moved from her face to his chest, resting over his heart. You gave me my dignity back, Marcus. Not because of what I was or what I could give you, but simply because I deserved it. Anyone would have. No. Her voice was firm. They wouldn't. I was at 3 auctions before yours. No one bid. No one even asked my name. The galaxy looked at me and saw nothing worth saving. Her violet eye glistened with unshed tears. You looked at me and saw someone worth double. Marcus's throat was tight. I just did what was right. Yes. That's exactly what I mean. She smiled. That small, painful smile that pulled at her scars but reached her eyes. Cathani wants me to come home. And perhaps I should. Perhaps duty demands it. But I've spent my entire life doing what duty demanded. Following the rules of my house, serving the expectations of my bloodline, sacrificing everything for people who threw me away the moment I was inconvenient. Her hand pressed harder against his chest. I want, for once, to choose what I want. And what do you want? The question hung between them. Sarethi held his gaze, and Marcus saw in her eye not a princess or a navigator or a symbol, but simply a woman. Tired and scarred and hopeful despite everything. I want to stay, she said. On this ship, with you. Not as a debt to be repaid or a transaction to be honored, but because... She faltered, royal composure cracking. Because you make me feel like I'm more than my scars, more than my failures. You make me feel like I matter. Marcus raised his hand, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. His fingers traced the edge of her scarring, the mark of her courage, the proof of her love for her sister, with infinite gentleness. You do matter, he said. You've always mattered. She leaned into his touch, her eye closing. Then let me stay. Sarethi, your sister needs you. Your house needs you. You could do so much good as a Valanthe royal. My sister needs an advisor she can trust. I can be that from anywhere. She opened her eye, meeting his gaze with sudden intensity. I can help her from a cargo ship just as easily as from the Silver Throne. Better, perhaps. A sister with no position cannot be accused of seeking power for herself. You've thought about this. I've thought about little else for weeks. She smiled. Ever since you took my hand on the bridge and told me you weren't going anywhere. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. The fear that she would leave, that this impossible gift he'd somehow been given would be reclaimed. Well, he said, his voice rough, if you're staying, we should probably talk about cabin arrangements. Sarethi laughed, a real laugh, sudden and bright, transforming her scarred face into something breathtakingly beautiful. Is that your attempt at negotiation, human? That's my attempt at suggesting that my cabin is larger than yours, and that I'm very tired of sleeping alone. Her smile softened. I accept your terms. He leaned down, and she rose up, and their lips met in a kiss that was gentle and fierce, and full of promise. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. I was auctioned as damaged goods, she whispered. And you paid double and asked for nothing. But I want to give you everything anyway. Is that acceptable? It's more than acceptable. He kissed her again, softer this time. It's perfect. Kithani took the news with grace. Perhaps she had expected it. Valanthi were perceptive, and Sarethi's feelings had likely been evident in ways she hadn't realized. You will visit the Silver Throne, Kithani said. It was not a question. Frequently, Sarethi agreed. And I will advise you whenever you need it. But my home is here now, on a human cargo ship, with someone who sees my worth. Sarethi glanced at Marcus, who was conferring with a council representative across the room. The galaxy changes, Kithani. Perhaps it's time the Valanthi changed with it. Perhaps it is. Kithani embraced her sister, a human gesture that would have scandalized their mother. Be happy, Sarethi. You've earned it. The council session concluded with a formal recognition of the Wandering Star's status as a protected vessel under both human and Valanthi law. A small gesture, but a significant one. The first formal acknowledgement of a human-Valanthi partnership at the governmental level. As the delegates dispersed, Marcus found Sarethi by the viewport, watching the stars. So, he said, slipping his arm around her waist. Where to next? I've been plotting a route. She leaned into him, her head against his shoulder. There's a system near the rim where the celestial paths converge in ways I've never seen. Ancient navigators believed it was sacred, a place where the mathematics of the universe became poetry. Sounds beautiful. It might be dangerous. The paths are unstable. No one has successfully navigated them in centuries. Marcus smiled. Good thing I've got the best navigator in the galaxy. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He pressed a kiss to her temple, just above the edge of her scars. Show me the stars, Sarethi. She turned in his arms, facing him. The station's lights caught her features, illuminating both the smooth skin and the damaged tissue, making no distinction between them. I love you, she said. The words came out almost surprised, as if she hadn't quite planned to say them. Marcus's heart swelled. I love you too. This isn't how things were supposed to go. She shook her head slightly, wonder in her voice. I was damaged goods. You were supposed to be another buyer, another transaction. Instead we found each other. He tucked a strand of silver hair behind her ear. Sometimes the galaxy gets it right. Sarethi smiled. That full, genuine smile that he'd worked so hard to earn, and took his hand. Come, Captain. We have stars to navigate. Together, they walked toward the docking bay, toward the Wandering Star, toward whatever future awaited them among the celestial paths. The galaxy was vast, and their ship was small, and there would be dangers ahead. But they would face them together. And that made all the difference.